remember when Marianne Williamson went on Jimmy Dore and got exposed, badly exposed on Ukraine.
Jimmy
and
Dore and Glenn Greenwald too. Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald.
Like, yeah, that was another one. Yeah, that was another one. She just looking bad, not able to answer questions, and then using these talking points of democracy and fighting this hard and how they're fighting their hearts out and not caring at all. For a person like her who's so spiritual, to have that level of delusion to where you don't care that humans are dying at the same time you're sending money to the #1 polluter in human history. It's just a bad look for the NATO left. It's a bad look. Go ahead, Nick.
Come on, CJ. Yeah, we know tens of thousands of Ukrainians are dying, but we must stop the Russian Federation. Good vibes and positive thinking.
Toxic positivity is going to kill them.
Thousands of Ukrainian soldiers going to die so we can weaken the Russian Federation. I believe we should love our neighbors. I believe we should take on capitalism, but I think we should support the Ukraine war. These are the open hypocrisies that we're supposed to be okay with. So I hope that Crystal Ball, Bernie Sanders, and the Nazi collaborators, I hope they're being taken care of by the liberal audience. We're done with them. Hope they accept you in the Democratic circle that you're applying for, Crystal, because you're completely seen through now. Fucking Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske, these motherfuckers have been making sure they don't read their notifications, no comments, nigga. We just got a tunnel vision ahead, nigga. Don't look at comments, nigga. Don't look at quote tweets. Don't look at your mentions, nigga. We cannot look at any response to the community because they're getting roasted in all their videos. All their videos they getting roasted. Kyle and Crystal are getting dragged on Twitter left and right because of the videos we're showing you guys. These videos going viral every day on Twitter because people they're having whiplash at the Bernie left openly selling out. So now they just doing this thing where they're not reading their mentions. Nigga, they're a tunnel vision. Nigga, they got a script.
They have to. They have to.
You guys believe that Crystal Ball do not see the comments where she getting fucking destroyed. So either she don't see the comments or she's actively making a coordinated effort to avoid it. And I'm asking you guys, why is that? So Kyle Kalinske is getting roasted by his audience, especially when you talk about media bias. In his media bias video, there were comments literally in the video like, why are you not talking about RBN? Why are you avoiding RBN? So Kyle and them purposely avoiding the feedback of their community because they know they sold out. Hope the liberal.
That's an indication. That's just like Pramila Jayapal. Remember how she avoids? You see how all the elected squad avoids us? You see how Bernie Sanders don't go on any left podcast? You see how they avoid us because they know that's a tell, Nick, that you know you are in the wrong. That's why you're avoiding it. Go ahead.
We show super chats and comments. Like, bro, can you imagine if Crystal Ball was forced to read super chats?
Oh, Lord. Let me play this clip, the Marianne Williamson segment of this Nazi collaborator episode. All right, so let's listen here.
Being an apologist for Putin and his war crimes. We're under no illusions regarding the difficulties involved in engaging Russia, given its outrageous and illegal invasion of Ukraine and its decision to make additional illegal annexations of Ukrainian territory. However, if there is a way to end the war while preserving a free and independent Ukraine, let's not forget that's what they're calling for, a free and independent Ukraine. It is America's responsibility to pursue every diplomatic avenue to support such a solution that is acceptable to the people of Ukraine. So the language is important. We want to make sure this is acceptable to the people of Ukraine. They need to be on board for these negotiations. We want a free and sovereign Ukraine. You guys hear what I'm saying here? Like, what they're very clear about how the priority is to end this as peacefully as possible while maintaining the sovereignty of Ukraine and protecting Ukrainian lives.
Marianne, how did the Democratic Party become the party of censorship and war?
Well, I don't, when it comes to being the party of war, I think both of them, I mean, both, when it comes to big oil and defense contractors, both the Republicans and the Democrats are in lockstep with their corporate donors on that. So I don't think of it as the party of war any more than the Republicans are, actually. I mean, you can look at individuals, but I just think of the military-industrial complex as having its grip on both parties, actually. So it's really more, how did the U.S. government become so hostage to Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing? That is the question in my mind.
I mean, even people who don't take corporate money in the Democratic Party are for the Ukraine war, and they just vote for military budgets. They vote for that's the reason why it stands out, is because the Democratic Party was supposed to be a left party. They're supposed to be anti-war. Everybody always expected the Republican Party to be right-wing and pro-war, and so that's why it's a different thing now. And everybody in the Democratic Party votes for war. They're all war pigs, and there's a big faction of the Republicans who aren't. In fact, we just covered a story with Matt Gaetz, who wants us to get out of Africa. You'll never hear Democrats do that. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I'm not enrolled in your perspective on pro-war. I think that there are a lot of people who are very, very concerned about the power of the U.S. war machine.
Which ones would those be?
Well, for one, me. I mean,
no, I'm talking about Democrats in Congress or who are elected.
I can't speak so much about Democrats in Congress, because I think of Democrats in Congress as so beholden to the corporatist Democratic leadership when push comes to shove. Obviously, I do. I wouldn't be running. Notice I'm running and they're not. So a lot of people who say they're progressives who are in Congress fall in line when it comes to that. But I think that there are many of us
you're going to do the same
do
thing.
not look at it that way and still have a different view, perhaps, than you do on
what is your view on the Ukraine war?
Well, I certainly am not naive about how we got there. I certainly understand that the U.S. poked the bear. I certainly understand about the Aegis missiles. And
this is that lane, the lane of I'm going to criticize the establishment or the Democratic establishment in this case, but I'm going to do the same thing as the people who don't criticize the establishment. So I'm criticizing it, but I still support them in the same way. So this is what that new lane is. It's like we can no longer pretend like the atrocities of the United States haven't affected. So now we have to at least acknowledge it in order to sell people on this bullshit. And that's what she's doing. Yeah, we're imperialists. Yeah, she says imperialist adventures. Yeah, all these things. But, and there's always a but. So let's continue with this.
In Poland, I don't feel that I'm naive at all about how the U.S. war machine works. However, it's kind of like you look at someone like Dwight Eisenhower. On one hand, he is the man who coined the phrase military-industrial complex, and he was the supreme commander of all Allied forces in World War II. It's not an either-or. You can.
What the fuck is that an example of? What is that an example of? What is she saying here? What I don't. Let's let it continue, and then because there's another part I want to get to too.
Can be aware that the military is profiteering in and causing a real terrible problem, as he realized after all that was over at the end of his presidency, and at the same time feel strongly that certain lines must be drawn, certain boundaries, and certain people must be stopped. So when you look at what happened last weekend in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 40 nations coming together, that's very important what happened last weekend. With China, India was there, Brazil was there. And I think that many of us feel, I feel that actually the fact that Ukraine got some support that it's gotten from the United States and other Western nations is part of what has opened up the possibilities that exist right now for real negotiation, because it will be other countries. This is not just about what the United States says. Most things when it comes to military around the world, it's not a unipolar world anymore. It's multipolar. A lot of nations are involved in this. And so
she wants to show, I've been studying, so she's using a lot of buzzwords to show unipolar world, to show, I know some stuff about foreign policy. That's clearly why she's using some of this phrasing, just throwing it out there to prove that she's been brushing up on her cliff notes.
I think we should all be glad about what's seems to have begun to happen in Saudi Arabia last weekend.
So I'm trying to figure. So you're saying?
Yeah, because she double talked. He asked you about Ukraine, and then because you know your stance on Ukraine is terrible, you said a bunch of other shit, and that was we couldn't decipher what you were if you were answering the question or not. That's why Jimmy is like, well, you know, I can't really understand what you're talking about here, so let's let him continue here.
Then you support Joe Biden's policy in Ukraine?
What I don't support about Joe Biden's policy is when he says,
second time, this is such a tell when you ask somebody a question, what's your name? Yeah, it's and they don't answer it. Oh, okay, yeah. Sky is blue, huh? But what's your name? Isn't that an indication that you don't want to answer the question if you continue not to answer the question and say everything else? Because the first time she rambled on about something else that clearly wasn't even on topic. He says, so I don't get it. So to be clear, I didn't, clarify. So what is your stance? So what do you agree with him on? And what does she says? Or what does she do? This is what I don't agree with him on. That's the indication that you know what the things you do agree with him on aren't things that people are going to want to aren't going to make people want to vote for you. So it's a tell, in my opinion. Let's continue.
For as long as it takes. He and Lord Austin just talk about how we're just giving money for as long as it takes. We need to be in support of a negotiated settlement.
So there already was a
Of course, theoretically, you would say, I mean, Jake Sherman was there. So to some extent, of course,
you're aware that in 2014 that the CIA.
This is where Jimmy goes on a history rant and tells her about the coup and everything, and she knows all about it. We've examined the full video before, so I guess I could bring it down. How do I switch it? Oh, is it this one? Switch it back. Okay, there we go. I was trying to figure out which one. I got to pay attention more on my screen. But anyway, so this is part one of Nazi collaborators, because these people aren't going anywhere. The Ukraine war is not going anywhere. So I'm sure we're going to be having a part two of this if they decide to fund even more, if they decide to take some other step, if they decide to put troops on the ground, if they decide whatever they decide to do. And these progressives are still on board with those tactics by the State Department and the NATO. We'll be revisiting this topic of Nazi collaborators in the future.